Okay, so we are into third Advent, and this week I want to talk about Matthew chapter 1, Jesus' genealogy. Typically, that's something we skip right over, but I don't believe God put anything in the Bible by accident. I think it's all there with an intentional purpose, and it communicates to us. And the genealogy in Matthew 1 is unique. There's, for one reason, there's 5 women mentioned in that genealogy. One, of course, is Mary, who we talked about last week. The other 4 are Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba. It's unusual, first of all, that God would have women put in the genealogy. That just wasn't normal for the time. I think God is communicating to us the value of women, and particularly at a time when women were not valued worldwide 2,000 years ago. He is saying, no, these women are my children. I value them. I think the other thing that's interesting, all 4 of these women have circumstances surrounding their life that could be labeled as shameful. They've been victims also, many of them. There's Tamar, who was a victim of injustice, and there was shame associated there. There's Rahab, who was a prostitute, working in something that would be considered shameful. There's Ruth, who was a refugee, which back in those days, that was considered also to be a shame. Refugees and foreigners were something less than. And then there's Bathsheba, who most likely, obviously, I would say a victim of adultery, because she was probably coerced into her adultery with the king. In all those, I think God puts those 4 women in there because he wants us to know that Jesus does not just remove the guilt of our sin, he removes the shame of our sin in our life circumstances. The gospel, we talk about, missiologists talk about how we can communicate the gospel via guilt innocence. Jesus died on the cross, and removes the guilt of our sin, but we can also communicate it through an honor-shame way. And most of the Middle East is an honor-shame culture. It really makes it interesting when you read the Bible through an honor-shame lens. And what we're seeing there is that Jesus removes the shame of our sin and of our difficult circumstances in life, and restores honor. And I think that's one of the things that God's trying to communicate by putting those 4 women in that genealogy. In this Advent, I think we can all sit there and think, and we can take time to praise God that he has removed the guilt of our sin, but also praise God that he's removed the shame of our sin and circumstances.